Ah, shit. Fuck this. Shit. Oh. Back. Look. Hello everyone and welcome back to Muskets in Media, and welcome back to the Amazon Games latest MMORPG, New World. 2 years ago, I had an idea while I was streaming on twitch.tv/GBScottGaming about a show that would combine my love of gaming and my love of history, specifically colonial times. The American Revolution is what sparked my love for history all the way back when I first learned about it in 6th grade. I jokingly made a joke on stream about a show where I talk about muskets in video games, where my mod Tyler basically wrote down the first name we gave this show, Muskets in Gaming. After that stream, I didn't think much of it until I decided that I wanted to start my journey on YouTube since my Twitch streaming career was basically dead. No one was coming to the streams. After I made the move to YouTube, I started brainstorming on this idea even more. And soon enough, Gaius, Morg, Tyler, and Jester were all thrown into a Discord with a simple message from Tyler. When are we getting this started? And soon enough, Gaius agreed to fund the first season of what was now finally called Muskets in Media. After I beat a game that he bought me, yes! Yeah! Yeah! Not only was I happy about beating that shitty game, in my head I was thinking, oh my god, we are actually gonna do this. A couple $100 later, and the Colonial was born, and the first episode script was well underway, with the game that caught our interest first, New World. And the first episode flopped hard, even to the point where I put a disclaimer saying sorry for how bad it was. Showing you how 16th century weaponry is shown via media. This can include video games, movies, etc. Today, we'll be talking about Amazon Games' newest release, New World, an action MMORPG game that I have actually previously covered on another video. Go check that out. The comments were luckily super supportive and we're enjoying the idea of this show. Thank God. So we kept on working on it, and with episode 2 about Holdfast Nations at War clearing off 90% of the issues we had last episode, we were back on track and have been working hard to make these the best videos we possibly can within our budget, which is not a lot. New World was Amazon's first MMORPG set in a fantasy world with magic, swords, and gunpowder. When the game came out, it was breathtaking to me, but got stale very quickly, as we found out all the fun stuff was in the endgame area, which was only accessible to grinding for hours to get to level 50 and 60. Other than the grind, the weapons in this game look and feel amazing. And you already know I started out with the musket and the rapier, then the musket and hatch, then musket and sword, and I think you're starting to get it. The musket stood with me from the very beginning of my journey, and I actually liked how they did this for their fantasy world. With a couple of tweaks, this could have been a very good interpretation of a musket firearm. As the years gone by, Amazon hasn't given up on New World, including a new weapon that we will also be looking at today, the blunderbuss, and the possibility of them adding a flintlock pistol in the future. For 16th, 17th century firearms enthusiasts, there is definitely something here for all of us, along with adding constant balance updates and even adding seasons of content to keep people coming back. The boys and I just started to return to New World after a long hiatus, and I hope that this video might actually help you want to as well. I never thought this game was bad, and my friends just sadly got bored of it, and when I played this 2 years ago, let me tell you, the weapon meta was definitely not in favor of the Musketeer. With average damage, slow reloads, and the curse of rolling resets your reload animation. The musket was super underpowered compared to the heavy armored boys and OP hatchet builds, which were quickly nerfed, but upon returning and reading some patch notes, the musket has become a formidable foe. It still can't handle beating heavily armored knights, but it has become a great range killer against light armored enemies, and can torture medium armored enemies pretty well. As if we went from lead balls to minute balls, it seems the musket is doing much better, which can be said about the game as a whole. But enough about the past and New World lore. We are all here to see this fantasy musket and how it compares to the real world musket. New World's musket looks like it was inspired by the wheel lock mechanism for the musket weapon. As you can see by the hammer, we have what looks to be a counterclockwise wheel lock musket. Other than them putting on their own variation of the musket, the lighting mechanism is really the only difference compared to an actual wheel lock. Take a look at this wheel lock musket and look at New World's musket. Let's go ahead and take a look at this musket now. So as we can see here, after firing the weapon, we see that the user pours what looks to be an invisible pouch in between the wheel and long crank looking thing here. Then the user pulls the crank up, which pulls back the hammer. If I had to guess though, I would assume that this also sets the wheel mechanism as well. Otherwise, why wouldn't you just simply pull the hammer back with your thumb? Obviously, there is very little animation here to show us what's going on when the trigger is pulled, but if I had to guess from a mechanical standpoint, it works almost exactly like a wheel lock musket. Once the trigger is pulled, it pushes down the hammer onto the wheel, which starts to spin, creating a spark. These sparks would have to, I guess, then go into an opening near the wheel where the user pours the invisible powder, which would then ignite and shoot out the bullet. Now obviously this gun is missing steps to make this fully work. The user did not store any gunpowder down the barrel, no bullet inserted into the barrel, no wadding, no ramming the bullet down. But the more I actually sit here and study this weapon, the more I am thinking about this thing could be fully functional in a different way. In the way of a trapdoor rifle. Trapdoor rifles were the next evolution of musket rifles. These weapons would load the cartridge in the bottom of the barrel and shut the trapdoor, basically located right here on them. And then they would pull back the hammer and fire. Very basic design, but 5 times faster than a traditional musket rifle. Now clearly the animation isn't showing everything, but what if the user is pouring powder, putting a ball in, cranking the lever, and then firing the gun? This would technically work and would mean that this is the first gun in Muskets and Media history to be done inaccurately, but actually would work as a real weapon. Now this is clearly all speculation, as like I said, we see the user move his hand near there, but he is clearly not holding anything. So we are going to just stick with what we see in the games. If we start going into ideas on how I could make this work, I can already see this going nuts. From what we are seeing compared to actual muskets, this user would simply have what Season 1 Musketeers know, because I mention in almost every single episode, is a flash in the pan, which is basically the gunpowder is ignited, but it doesn't send the musket ball flying down the barrel. So this user, unless he goes with our theory, is simply not going to have a working gun. Like I said before, I am not against their concept of a wheel-lock musket. I'm actually pretty interested in this design. The reload of wheel-lock pistol is crazy similar, powder, wad, ball, ram, and all that down the barrel, where the wheel-lock has a key to turn the spindle wheel counterclockwise. Just one rotation will set it up perfectly to light the powder. New World's design doesn't need to have a key, since it's on the gun already. Honestly, not a bad design idea at all. One thing I feel like would make musket better in this game would be the attachment of a bayonet, allowing us to have a fighting chance if someone gets too close to musketeers. But it looks like when it comes to New World, they're going for that hunter style, when it comes to musketry in this game, hence the bear traps. There's one ability I want to talk about that is basically a flame shot, where activating this will light your gun on fire, essentially, and do flame damage. Clearly this would not work and result in a... With that being said, I believe we have looked in everything for the musket in New World, so now let's go ahead and look at the newest black powder weapon in this game, the blunderbuss. And here I thought Blackwake was going to be the first video to feature a blunderbuss. For those of you who are unaware of what a blunderbuss is, this is basically the world's first shotgun, as the end of the barrel was widened to allow you to shove almost anything down there. Blunderbusses were mostly famous for their use on boarding parties for ships and naval battles, being able to shoot multiple foes at once at close range. While the standard ammunition was smaller lead balls, 32 caliber, compared to the rifle's 50 caliber, they could also shoot broken glass, rocks, and basically anything else that they could have found. Think of this as the junk gun in Fallout 4. This is the modern equivalent. Unfortunately, the blunderbuss in this game I am not a fan of, and I will show you why now. Yeah, so the blunderbuss apparently can fire 2 shots before it needs to reload, and worst of all, its reload is a pump-action shotgun, apparently. And its feats, while I like the idea, obviously wouldn't work. Shoving a grenade down the barrel isn't going to work how you think it will. It's just gonna... Shoving a net down there won't work either. The net won't fit if you are using one that can catch anything huge. And lastly, the grappling hook, I don't even have to say it. What a shame. A first for MMORPGs where your main weapon is a blunderbuss. What a wasted potential. Finally, let's get into some ratings. The musket, while isn't 100% accurate, I am basically going to give it a 4 out of 5. Basically saying with a little bit of tweaking, it could honestly work and evolve into an actual musket design. A first for muskets in media. When it comes to accuracy in warfare, that can kind of go 2 different ways, so I'm going to give it a 3. If you were with all your boys and line up and fight, you can easily create a line of lead going down the battlefield. But as I have said, this game seems to focus on a hunter style of gameplay for musket users, which it does well, allowing us to crouch, prone, and even skin animals. Not bad when it comes to immersion. So for accuracy in warfare, you have to put it right smack dab in the middle. The blunderbuss, however, I'm giving low ratings, and the musket, we could kind of finagle some idea for how to make it work. This one I cannot at all, and therefore it gets an inaccurate depiction of blunderbuss in musket warfare, and also an inaccurate depiction of blunderbuss in European warfare, since we are not in the sea. And that about wraps it up for the Muskets in Media New World Remastered video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and thank you all so much for 400 subs. We are on a roll this year, and I hope we can make it to 500 subs by the end of the year, as I have more fun stuff planned for the next sub goal. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next week.